devil, you're indeed. What a funny little bird or frog are. Him ain't got no tail, hardly almost, but when him run, him hop, and when him don't run, him sit him on a little tail, which he ain't got hardly almost.
Okay, one more time.
You ever heard that one?
What is that from?
It's like an old fable my grandfather taught me a long time ago. Maybe not a fable, but a little. It was the only way his head would stop twitching. Tell us the one about the bird and the frog.
All right, here we are, boys. Gilbert, East Market.
Raymond.
All right.
Another remote show today. We are in one of the, I guess, legendary. Everybody that has been to Iowa City is going to know where we are. But we're going to interview one of the great personalities that makes Iowa City Iowa City. We have a great show today. It's possibly one of the most noticeable figures right now. He's super hot, and we could probably do a 6-hour show with him. The format's going to be a little bit different today because we want to get as much time with our guest as possible. So our guest today is Doug Alberhasky. He is a small business owner. He and his son of John's Grocery. It's probably one of the most storied businesses in Iowa City. I think if you drink wine or beer or any of the spirits, you've probably logged a little time here. It's been Doug's business. John's Grocery is. I know whenever I travel, I always wear a John's Grocery shirt because those are the people I want to talk to in the airport.
Yeah, and they'll come up and talk to you.
Yeah, anybody that has a Tiger Hawk thing in, but John's Grocery are the people I want to log some time with. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Doug Alberhasky. Doug, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Doug, at what line of generationally ownership of this business?
I'm Generation 3, so Grandma and Grandpa started back in 1948.
Right. Same building?
Same building.
We're at the corner of Gilbert and East Market, right?
Yep, correct.
So I noticed on top of the building itself is
1848, yeah. So we are in the oldest continually established business in Iowa City. There's been a grocery store here for all 177 years.
Yeah.
In our current wine room, and where we're at right now is the original 1848 section. I've got a log in my little display cabinet that took out of the foundation when I was redoing some of the floor, and that tree started its life during the presidency of Thomas Jefferson.
That's crazy.
Oh, wow.
It really kind of is.
And at the time when this was built, this part of town was really bustling.
Yeah. So, Iowa City was kind of founded in 1839. The state of Iowa was founded in 1846. State University of Iowa was 1847. So we were basically one of the first permanent buildings in Iowa City, besides like the old Capitol and some of the other places downtown.
I mean, legendary in the sense that the beer offering here and the beer fridge, just if anybody's been looking for a rare nectar, you can probably find it at John's. And John has, I always kind of have marveled at and wanted to get invited on a trip to go do the European beer tasting brew pub or brewery tour.
We've had that in the works for a while. I wanted to do something with the National Czech and Slovak Museum, and we had something kind of planned in 2008. Problem was they had about 14 feet of water in their museum at that point, so that kind of got pushed back. But I think once we get through the movie, we're gonna definitely do a little movie tour through Europe and find some quality beverages along the way.
Sign us up.
This is our barometer to see how Czech a person really is. Doug, do you have a carp in your bathtub on Christmas Eve?
Just a little litmus test.
Yeah, well, we just have a name for him, but yeah.
The Christmas carp. That was
yes, yeah. No, we are. At least that side of the family is 100% Bohemian. My great grandparents immigrated from Bohemia in 1861, and we really haven't left the neighborhood. So I'm the 7th generation in the north side.
Right.
So, Doug, the business has evolved to being very well known for beer, wine, kind of niche stuff like that. When it first opened, first generation,
Yeah.
what did the business look like? Was it more of a general store? Was it?
It was a.
And how did you get to this?
Yeah, so my grandpa was actually working for his brother Don at the Central Tap right up the street where Goosetown Cafe is. That's the original Union Public House. He had just had my Uncle Tim, so he had a wife and 5 kids, and he knew that he wasn't going to be able to make ends meet working for his brother. During World War II, he had signed up real early. He had a friend that he was going to join the Army, and his friend goes, "John, join the Navy. You're probably going to die anyway, but at least you're going to know where you're going to eat, where you're going to sleep, and where you're going to shit." And so he joined the Navy. He was a diesel mechanic on submarines. Joined right after Grandma and Grandpa got married on New Year's Eve, right after Pearl Harbor, and shipped out to Chicago, then went to San Diego for advanced training. I think that's where my grandma actually went to see him kind of for their honeymoon, and that's I think where my dad actually came from.
Okay.
Because my dad was actually 3 years old before Grandpa saw him for the first time. But he was supposed to take off for Pearl Harbor. His boat got delayed because of a big storm, and the sub that he was assigned to went off without him and was never heard from again. So it's on eternal patrol. So Grandpa at first got temporarily, then finally permanently assigned to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, which was the Pacific Fleet headquarters for the U.S. Navy, and did all sorts of odd jobs, and he kept sending Grandma war bonds home, and that's how they had saved up enough money to be able to buy John's Grocery.
Oh, wow.
Oh, interesting.
And so the guy that owned the store at that time came into the Central Tap one day and said, "John, you should buy my business." That was just, wait a minute, I now have 5 kids. How am I going to do this? That sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. And so the store at that point was just, a little corner grocery. They were all over the north side and downtown. At one point, when Grandma and Grandpa opened, there were 28 other family-owned corner groceries.
Yeah.
And it was amazing that once a month, they would all get together on a Sunday and have a big potluck and just talk about, business and all that. And that sign there, on Sundays, we were open from 8:30 to 1 and then 4 to 10:30. And I always ask people, why was there a donut? And that was the only time that the family could get together for dinner. So over the years, we just steadily change with the times. We can't dictate to our customers what they're going to buy. They have to say, do you carry this? And I think one of the best things, and my wife would actually laugh at this, but it's listening. Being able to listen and to be able to know what your customers want before they might even know that they want it.
Right.
Has been one of our strengths. And, over the years, the big guys just keep getting bigger, but, they've tried putting us out of business. But we're that small, little, nimble running back that can find the hole in the line and get there before anybody else does. And that's been one of our secrets. Yeah.
I think one of the things that's really quite amazing about this place is generational family businesses. Everybody just assumes that they're easy. You just do your thing, but it's very difficult. When you see a generational business, it's very difficult to make that happen. Usually with the first generation, there's a passion in it. There's the second generation, they have seen what the struggle looks like, and they were part of the struggle, because
grown up with it and all.
Yeah. It's once you get past that second generation, kind of that hunger subsides, I don't know, or it's just not, it's harder to find somebody to step up. And I think the fact that you continue to evolve this place, and John, you made a comment, and you can kind of fill in a little bit, but it's hard to figure out what to change and what to leave the same.
Obviously, this is your family's business.
Yeah.
But it's also become an institution for the community. And it goes without saying, I don't have to ask you how you feel as the current curator of that community enterprise, because I know everyone who's ever listened to you talk knows how seriously you take that and how passionate you are about that. But what I think is unique is you have made significant changes in your time as running the business. Physical changes, you remodeled the building, you've changed signage, you've famously made the business decision to get rid of the deli and all that. None of those decisions could have been easy, and I'm sure a lot of thought went into them. Some probably initially were better than others, but as we sit here today, it appears like they've all worked out well. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those decisions, how you go about it, and lessons learned along the way?
Yeah, so when I first started managing, went to the University of Iowa for a couple years. When that didn't work out, I went up to Kirkwood. It took me only 7 years to get a 2-year food store management degree because I was working, 60, 70 hours a week. But at that point, my dad and uncle were our two managers. One would work days, the other one would work nights, and then they'd switch. So growing up, I only saw my dad half the time. And that was one thing that I vowed that I never, ever wanted to do to my family. So one of the first things I did was I implemented letting people have a little bit more power as far as supervising, but then also setting procedures in place to make sure that they were doing what they needed to be doing. I was a big one on working on your business, not in your business. I still worked in the business, of course, but every once in a while being able to take that step back and realizing, there's things that we need to do. And I was so grateful that my grandpa, my grandma, my dad were comfortable giving me the ball and letting me run with it. And, one of the first things I did was, revamping the beer room. My uncle owned the old style distributorship. It was a remnant of one of the brewers in the North Side, Craft Beverage. And he had some of the best beers in the world. I mean, back when it was all Miller Lite, Bud Light, Coors Light, he was not only had old style, but he had Chimay and Samuel Smith and Watney's and Guinness and Paul Honor. And those are the beers that I kind of fell in love with. So that's kind of what got me going in the beer business. But then it was also, looking at new technology. And I got to give a lot of props to my brother, Mike, because he developed our website, I think when he was like sophomore in high school. So he was really kind of on the cutting edge. And then my dad, too, was always looking at, how can technology help us in kind of getting past where we're stuck at right now? Obviously having a good location is huge. It's the ability to change and adapt and be efficient. One of the biggest projects I'd ever done was in 2005 when we built the new beer cooler and we flip-flopped the beer room and the wine room. And I think one of our longtime customers gave me one of the best compliments. He said, Doug, watching you rearrange the store and never closing was like watching a mechanic change out an engine on a 747 in mid-flight.
Right.
And that made me happy. But it was just, we had to. It was so labor intensive taking beer from here and there and everywhere and putting it onto the shelf one at a time, where now our distributors bring in the beer and we hardly have to touch it. Efficiency made it possible. And there's been so many things that we've tried. We had a gluten-free bakery for a while. That was huge. Went away. We had cigars. At one point, that was huge. That went away. At one point, we're shipping beer all over the country and shipping glassware all over the world. And eventually that went away. So, it's always paid to be the small kid, to be the first kid on the block to be able to do something. But then, when it's successful, everybody else is going to copy you. And when it's not successful or when it runs its course, you got to say, okay, it's time to
know when to cut.
Yeah. And that was the thing with the deli. COVID was not kind to the deli. We'd gone through a lot of changes. We just got voted the best fried chicken in the state of Iowa. And this was something that I really didn't want to overtly say, but we've always had a good relationship with City Hall for the most part. But the fire marshal had grandfathered in our hood vent and fire suppression system, and he said, Doug, I just can't grandfather you anymore. You got to change this out. And it was going to be like $60K. Because it wasn't just doing a couple little things; it was redoing everything.
You mean they didn't have the pathway for
not so much
for a grease vent?
Not so much, yeah. And we just looked at it, and then when we started really digging into it, my GM at the time said, we'd be better off just taking $100,000 bill and burning it than keeping the deli open, because there were so many sunk costs that you didn't think about, like the grease dumpster and all of the cleaning and all of the sanitary supplies and the insurance, because, according to our workman's comp, there's not very much difference between running a small deli and being a chainsaw juggler.
Right.
So, we just, when I looked at the numbers, I go, this has been such a part of our business, and in our, I was the one that, I never did the cooking. You wouldn't want me to cook, but I was the one that delivered all of it. I was the one that had to take a half of ton of coleslaw down to the 4-H fairgrounds every year for the Sunrise Optimist Chicken Barbecue.
Right.
That was such an important part of our family. Mm-hmm. But, if we stay on this course, are we going to make it?
Yeah.
And, at this point in this room, if it wasn't for making that decision, we wouldn't have the movie.
Yeah.
Because the movie has kind of grown up in this room. Mm. And when you look at all the T-shirts and the glassware and all that, we've never thrown out a T-shirt because it went out of date.
Right.
Yeah.
It just little things like that over the years I look back on and say, boy, that was a great idea. I mean, at the time, it absolutely sucked.
Right.
Well, I assume someone is tasked with making the chicken and potato salad for Alberhasky family gatherings.
Yeah, so my Aunt Lori and my Aunt Bev still
So
do
it still
that.
lives.
Yeah, it does. It does. We that family recipe is there. I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. Tom.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. Nope, we wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
The evolution of beer being such a forward identity of the store.
Yeah.
When did that evolve? Was it really like that from the jump? I will tell you, like, my great-grandmother lived over on Dubuque Street.
Yeah.
My dad and uncles tell stories about bringing the wagon over to fill up with Schlitz, and then Grandma would just pay her bill when she came next time to the store itself.
Yeah.
So obviously beer and beer distribution was a big part way back in the day. Was it always that way, or how did it grow?
Well, being so close to campus, we always sold beer. But it wasn't really until I think my uncle got back from Vietnam and bought craft beverage that, we really started, we were trying to help him out by selling the beer. So we got kind of synonymous with
The
with beer.
craftier stuff.
Well, and at first it was just old style and Rhinelander and stuff like that. And it was when I really got into it in the late 80s is when we really kind of took off. Iowa City is so well traveled, and when you've been to Brussels, when you've been to Munich, when you've been to Salzburg, you want to recreate that memory. Mm-hmm. And we kept having people asking for things. That's when I was kind of, oh my gosh, because I grew up sorting bottles and cans down in the basement.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how much that sucked.
But
yeah,
We both sorted bottles and cans.
Hy-Vee.
Oh gosh, yeah,
different but same.
Right.
Yeah, and it wasn't until I tried Chimay Grand Reserve that I found a beer that, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I love telling the story. Like, my neighbors brought over some just right out of the oven double chocolate chunk cookies for a Super Bowl party, and I was drinking a Sprecher Imperial Stout.
Yeah.
And I took a bite out of that cookie because it smelled so good. It was like having molten lava in my mouth.
Right.
And I took a great big swig of my Imperial Stout. And at that point, the clouds parted, the sun came down, the angels sang, and that's when I realized there's something more than just, and I've always pushed drink for the taste, not for the effect.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I first showed up at the University of Iowa, I'd never been to Brussels, so when we came to John's Grocery, we loaded up on Rhinelander.
Yes.
Right. Ultimately, it probably made better end tables than it did drinkable, but we grew in our beer palate with your help through the years.
Yeah.
But back then, what was signature at John's was the keg wall.
Yes.
And you'd walk in, you'd see all the kegs, the prices, what was available. Mm-hmm. It seemed like perpetually kegs were rolling out the back door.
Yeah.
What has happened to the keg business, and what's your take on it, and what do you do for kegs now versus what you did in its prime?
Well, we still sell kegs, definitely a lot less. For kegs, there's a price-benefit ratio. When I was slinging kegs, and old style was like $29.99 for a 16-gallon half barrel. The case equivalent of that would have been about $80. So is it better to get a keg? Oh, heck yeah. it's a kind of a pain because you got to have the ice, you got to have the tap, you got to have all this other stuff. But even if you drink only half of it, you're still money ahead. Over the years, I think the biggest thing that happened in the keg business was the fact that some people figured out that they could take an aluminum half barrel, put down a $12 deposit on it, drink the beer, and then they took it to their local scrapyard and they got $50 for it.
Okay.
And so for a brewery to have you having a keg at your house, they have to have, I think it's 9 kegs in the system between being on a truck, being at the distributor, being on the way to the brewery, being cleaned in the brewery, waiting for beer to be filled in it, filling it, putting it in the cooler, setting it out, blah, blah, blah. So they basically found out that if we're losing all of this money, and it right now, even with a $30 keg deposit, that keg costs over $100 to buy. Mm-hmm. And so they've got to ensure that they're getting those kegs back. And so as a industry, they kind of said, we are not going to concentrate at all on the at-home market. And they took the price per ounce up to the point where it's not really that much better of a deal. Yeah. And with the headache, obviously we still sell a lot of 5-gallon kegs to people that have, kegerators at home. Yeah. But it's nothing like it used to be. I mean, on a football Saturday, I can remember myself tossing 200 kegs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My uncle would come Friday morning, Friday afternoon, Friday evening, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, just to keep us full, because I could only hold about 40 kegs of old style.
Mm-hmm. The success of a college party used to be defined by how many kegs
you went
through
absolutely.
At the party. So
Absolutely.
I don't know how kids measure their parties nowadays.
We had a discussion about third episode about the Coors Party Ball.
Oh, yes.
Sure did.
Could those things ever make a triumphant return during the summer? Just like from May to like during graduation season through...
The problem with those were the tappers were just they're junk.
Right.
The tappers were just junk. That was a great idea. In fact, some of the Belgian and German kegs now actually come. It's a ball, and then the beer is actually in a bladder inside of it. So it's basically a one-way keg. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the cost of taking the empty kegs back over the pond to Europe. And one of our importers, just absolutely brilliant, he actually has these small, they're like half of a full container. It's a self-contained, pressurized, refrigerated keg. And he'll send it over to a brewery, because he has different sections in it, so they can put up to 3 different beers in one of those. Mm-hmm. They ship that over, and then here in the U.S., they will keg and can that beer. And that way then there's no waste in, like every single time that, a container comes over, you've got so much space that's wasted because you've got the little spots of air in between the bottles or the cans. So, there's lots of ingenuity going out there, but for the most part, it's kegs, I think, have seen their day, unfortunately.
Can you give us the definitive origin story of the term Dirty Johns?
Yes. When Grab a Grap opened, the original City High, Central Junior High, was right down the block. The kids would always come in and get penny candy, and that drove my grandma nuts. So in this room right here, she started making 5-cent ham salad sandwiches, and our deli was born. Mm-hmm. So eventually we had hundreds of kids coming in over the noon hour. I just recently heard a story from a gentleman that said that when he would come in for lunch, sometimes he wouldn't have enough money to pay for a sandwich, and Grandpa would actually hand him a broom and dustpan and go sweep the parking lot, and he'd have a sandwich when he came back. So eventually we have half of Central Junior High coming down here for lunch. Fast forward 1956, we're the first place in town to sell a brand new magazine by the name of Playboy. Mm-hmm. You see the trucks going by, delivering the magazines and newspapers and stuff. Guy in the back just basically takes a big bundle, throws them out the back door, and they just keep motoring down Market Street. Well, one day that happens, and there's two boys walking up early for lunch. They see the truck go by, they see the stack come out, and they see opportunity. So they steal that entire stack of Playboys. They whisk it down to the locker room, start passing them out to all their buddies. They are the absolute gods
Sure.
until Otto, the wrestling coach, catches them. And Otto drags him up to the principal's office.
He doesn't sound like he had a sense of humor.
Not so much. But unfortunately, Otto couldn't tell the principal exactly what was going on because Otto had a gym full of kids to teach. So just assuming, not hearing the full story, the principal called up my grandpa and says, "Dirty John, what in the hell are you doing? Tell my boys Playboy." And the name sticks. So
There you
Scout's
go.
honor, true story.
Right.
Okay.
Great story.
Love it.
One other quick question I had. We've talked about dive bars and stuff. You obviously are a beer history expert.
Yeah.
North Side dive bars, and when you think of a dive bar, what do you think defines that? And then what is a couple of 2-3 of your favorite, either through the years or still existing?
Well, I mean,
Emporiums.
so the Foxhead. I mean,
Yep.
you know, if you gave the Foxhead a really good cleaning, it would disappear.
Right.
You know, that to me is the dive bar. My great grandfather Charles actually built the booths
Oh,
in the
wow.
Foxhead. So that is the oldest continually established bar in Johnson County. 1873 is when it was opened, I do believe. My grandpa's brother Bernie was too young to actually hold a liquor license in 1933 after the 21st Amendment repealed prohibition. So my great grandpa Charles actually held the liquor license until Bernie could do it. So the Hilltop actually got their liquor license I think a month before the Foxhead. So technically they are the oldest liquor license in Iowa City, but the Foxhead was a bar well before that. And the Hilltop has changed names over the year where the Foxhead is still the Foxhead.
What about George's? Where do they rank in that pecking order?
I mean,
Somewhere after.
You gotta love a burger from George's, along with an old 63. You know that I go up there quite often to have meetings and all that. So George's and the Foxhead are two of the favorites. I mean, we deliver a ton down to the Deadwood, so that would definitely be one. Joe's Place, you know, I mean, I wouldn't really call Joe's Place a dive bar, but you know, it's
College bar, maybe.
yeah, but you know, when I think of a dive bar, it's somewhere where you're going to meet the locals, where you're going to get a good story, where you're going to get a full flavor. And you know, when we've gone to Europe and all that, I love getting into the smaller communities because that's where the history is and that's where the real people are, and that's what I really just love.
You know,
awesome.
we did an interview with Ben at the Deadwood, which is a classic dive bar, and you know, he was quick to point out, he goes, I think Cheers was a great dive bar. He goes, they had brass footings and you know, it's fancy, and they, you know, they had walrus pulls for the tapper. He goes, this is classy, he's upscale, but it's a dive bar. It's about the people. If you want to know the people in the neighborhood, that's the dive bar.
And that's so true. That's so true.
What was it like growing up in Iowa City? Did you grow up far from here?
So we grew up on Columbia Drive. I mean, at first we were on Dover Street, but I did not. I mean, I went to Southeast and went to City High, so I knew a lot of the families down here. Some of my best friends grew up on Brown Street and Dewey and all that. It was so amazing just kind of seeing, you know, like going by, well, that was my great grandparents' house, and that was my great great grandparents' house, and you know, like during the summers, I would just hang out with Grandma and Grandpa and help Grandpa with whatever he needed to do, either here at the store or at our rentals, and you know, that was so much fun. You know, having not just a neighborhood at home, but a neighborhood here in the North Side. And, you know, it was great because my grandpa loved telling stories, and I love listening to, you know, and picking up everything that he would say and learning the why. You know, he was such an amazing soul, cared so much for people, was such a hard worker, but still loved life. And that's what I've tried to aspire to be.
You are a great storyteller, and you're quite a historian, too. Tell me, this neighborhood now, there's some parking lots here.
Yeah.
But, you know, what was this neighborhood like? And then tell me about the history, like kind of catty corner of this neighborhood.
Yeah, so in the 1800s, Goosetown was north of Market Street, and that's where all the Bohemies came. They called it Goosetown because a lot of the Bohemian residents there had geese. They were their guard animals. They laid eggs. If times got tough, they were their meal, and they could use them for feathers. So in doing some research and all that, there were 3 very large production breweries right on Market Street. The Great Western is kind of between Bluebird and George's. The Englert City Brewing Company is to the south of that in the Lawyers parking lot. And then still standing is the Union Brewing Company where Brewery Square is. I got into the history. Our former state archaeologist, who unfortunately just passed away in August, Marlon Ingalls, asked, "Hey, Doug, you want to go down and see the beer caves?" I said, yeah. And that kind of got me going down the rabbit hole, learning about the history of the neighborhood, learning how my family was kind of attached to it. I just kept thirsting for more. Marlon and I, for about 12 years or so, did charity beer cave tours. I think one of them we did for the Children's Museum brought like $31,000. It was insane. We had 2 groups betting or going against each other. But these were the things that I really got into, and I started doing a presentation. So we'd go to the beer caves, and then we'd come back for the presentation, do a little bit of beer tasting for people. In 2018, I'm a founding member of the 100 Plus Men Who Care group, and we did a joint meeting with 100 Plus Women, and we took about 80 people down into the beer caves. And one of the guys that went down on that was so enamored with the story, he ended up writing a book called Beer Money, A Tale of the Iowa City Beer Mafia. Steve Sherman did an amazing job. He did a lot of research. He took the research that I had done, that Marlon had done. Glenn Ernst, who is a German professor here, had done a ton of research looking at all the Irving Weber stuff. There's a lot of stuff written on the times of the beer riots. And Steve just dove in and created this amazing world. From there, he was actually an extra in a movie that our director in our movie Death or Brewer, Makutsi Rakundo, did called East and Middle West. And Steve actually gave Makutsi his book and said, "Hey, you should read this." And it took Makutsi about 1.5 years to do it. But when he did, he goes, "Oh my gosh." And this is, Makutsi grew up here. He's originally from Swaziland, but he immigrated here when he was 10 and, graduated from West High and went to the Bedell Center, Entrepreneurial Center. He actually had a food cart down in the Ped Mall for a number of years doing loaded potato bowls and corn rock. But Makutsi just was so enamored with the world that Steve had created in his book. We ended up, doing the impossible, and this past summer we just made a feature-length motion picture. Mina Savari and Jefferson White both said that they felt like we made a $20 million movie for under $2 million, and we raised all but $50,000 right here locally.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean,
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I said at the very top of this that you're one of the most interesting people, and we could interview you for 6 hours. But the fact that you said you were going to do something and then followed through on it. I know 1,000 people that have a great idea, and none of them do they come to fruition. And I remember the first time that we were talking, he was like, "Yeah, we've got this." And this guy, he's written this book, and we kind of know a guy that does movies. And you started putting money together, which is the absolute hardest part, is selling
really
this
was.
idea, and having people see your vision, what's in your head or what's in this small group of people's, and then saying, "Yeah, I'll put money towards that." The fact that you got the money raised is amazing, because that's usually where people stop. They have that hurdle that they can't get over. I know how much a camera cost per day. You had like 3 of them. You had trailers. You had actors and actresses. I just admire you so much for like starting something and then following through. It's really a great story.
Yeah, we have such an amazing community here. I mean, normally the way that you make a movie is you have a name. You have a director, a producer, an actor, or a studio. And what did we have? We had beer caves, we had an amazing story, and we have an amazing community. that would rally around something like that. And it's really it's amazing to look back now after, we're still in post-production, but it's amazing to look back what we've been able to do by, making your optimism come true.
Yeah.
I'm in the Optimist Club. That's one of the tenets. Nobody's going to give you something. You have to make it come true. And one of the things I always told my my scouts when I was scoutmaster is, you surround yourself with good people and good things happen. And so many times when we needed something, God just had somebody come through that door there, and all of a sudden it's just, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
And we really did something that we never should have been able to do.
Pretty audacious, really.
But thank you. But it's just part of it is you fake it till you make it, and what you don't know sometimes helps, because if I would have known going into it how hard this would have been, I probably would have said, I don't know if I want to do that.
You served as the producer for this, right?
Yeah, I was the executive producer.
Producer. And I assume when they said you would be the executive producer, you had to Google that?
Yeah, I had no clue. Last year I built my house, and I thought, that's going to be the hardest thing I ever did. And before that, I remodeled the store, and that was the hardest thing I ever was going to do. But this was, and part of it was, I was the executive producer, but I was also the locations manager and the transportation and logistics manager.
Right.
So just keeping everything moving. We had 38 different locations that we were at. We had 36 crew. We had 42 casts. We had over 150 extras. That's a lot of moving parts.
Right.
And, just having so many amazing people helping, and just, I at times I felt like I'm in control, but I do not have control of either the steering wheel or the gas or the brake pedal.
Right.
And it was a horrible feeling, but all I had was my attitude and my effort.
Right.
When, and this is one thing I told my scouts, after we got done shooting, I went back to my old troop and showed them pictures, but then I did leadership lessons learned. And one of the things was, you need to be acting like somebody's watching you even when they're not.
Right.
By my actions, so many of the crew thought, well, geez, if Doug's working this hard, I got to step my game up.
Right.
And our gaffer who does lighting and stuff, he said the last night that we wrapped, he goes, Doug, this was my 16th major motion picture that I've worked on, and I've never worked so hard to be perfect.
What a compliment. Yeah.
And it was because, he said, of me and how hard I was working, because he didn't want to let me down.
I think the most impressive thing that I've got from your stories you've told is most productions have two people that wrangle Crispin Glover, and you were just the only person to do it.
Well, no.
It takes a village.
Yeah, it does. It does. So we did have a producer from LA that was able to garner our talent, and he actually was the one that did the majority of the Crispin Glover wrangling. But I had to pay for everything, and in more ways than one.
Right.
So he was an amazing actor, a really nice person, and I'll leave it there.
It was kind of funny.
He can kick. He can kick well. I think.
Right. Yeah.
Well, he was David Letterman.
Yeah. It was kind of funny to see the overlap of our friends, because I remember a Facebook post where somebody said, I can't believe I'm saying this. I have to find the right elliptical machine for Crispin Glover.
Yes. He was very, very particular, and he also had to have a bicycle with a bell and a basket on it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the night that I almost got tased because of him, it was our last night in Galena. We are about 8 blocks from downtown. Our call time was 3 p.m., so we knew we were going to work till like 3 a.m. And Crispin's call time was, I think, like 10:30, and it got pushed back. He's supposed to be on set, and we can't find him. And our second assistant director saw him riding up to set, but he never got there. And I'm thinking, okay, so here's a man in a black 3-piece suit with a black top hat
Right.
on a black bike
Right.
with no light on it
Right.
at night
Yep.
riding through Galena.
Yeah.
He's dead in a ditch.
Right.
Or he's gotten lost and he can't find us. So we hop in the golf cart and drive all over Galena. And I absolutely love Galena. It's such a cool place. But nothing happens after 9 o'clock. Nothing. And so it's now like 11:30-ish. We pull in by the DeSoto Inn, very historic store. Abraham Lincoln gave one of his inauguration speeches. I send our second AD in to try to find Crispin. And I say, I'm going to hang here because it's a big place. And if he comes out, I want to be able to catch him. So I'm sitting there and I see headlights pull up behind me. And then another pair of headlights pull up behind me. And I'm going in my rearview mirror, is that a Ford Explorer? I'm pretty sure that's a Ford Explorer. I'm positive that's a Ford Explorer. So always better be proactive than reactive. I get out. There's two police officers. The lead police officer actually has her hand on the taser. And I go, have you seen Crispin? And she goes, what? Crispin Glover from Back to the Future. He's missing. We need him.
Yeah.
And she's going,
Oh, boy.
what? You can't have a golf cart on city streets at night.
Yeah.
I go, well, actually, I didn't know that, but I need Crispin Glover because we need him on set. And by saying the word set, that let the other police officer know, oh, he's with the movie. Yeah, the police chief said it's okay for him to have his golf cart on the city street. I go, well, I'm glad we got that out of the way. I need to find Crispin Glover.
Right.
And so
Until you said the word set, you were probably digging your hole deeper. You were
oh, I know. I'm sure that they thought I was crazy or drunk or something, looking for the Back to the Future guy because, of course, But yeah, so
He was
that
found,
was,
obviously.
Yeah, he went back to his room to study his lines more.
And to polish his top hat.
Yeah, oh yes, yeah. But so yeah, he was amazing, very interesting guy.
So this is all in the can. It's in the edit process now?
Yeah. So everything goes right. I'm heading out to LA this weekend. I'm going to meet with our editor. Going to view the rough cut. So there's the assembly cut, then the rough cut, then the director's cut, and then the final cut. Between the director's cut and the final cut, we do all of our CGI and VFX work. CGI basically puts stuff in that's not there. VFX takes stuff out. We do our Foley work, all of our sound design work, because we want to be able to have it so that it'll be both Shelby Digital 5.1, but also be able to sound good in a brewery that might just have a couple speakers. We have to do our ATR, which is our voiceover work, and Mina Savari is going to do that. We have to do our score. And right now we're looking at a guy that's actually from North Liberty that has won a couple Grammys and has done work for Disney, and he's going to do an original score for us. And then after that, then we'll start submitting it to film festivals, and that's where we'll determine, are we going to go on a nationwide release in theaters? Are we going to do Netflix? We know we're at least going to do brewery tours all over the country.
Sure.
And we know that we're going to go over to Europe because they never had Prohibition over there, so they're going to want to see this movie.
Right. Yeah. The story is really an amazing story. I mean, Iowa had dabbled in Prohibition before it was nationwide, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
and
Yes.
the city of Iowa City dabbled in it as well.
Yeah. And, Iowa, along with Kansas and Maine, actually led the nation in the Prohibition movement. So this was a very tumultuous time. You had really 4 immigrant groups in Iowa City. You had the English, which were either Episcopalian, Quaker, but mostly Methodist, and they were definitely anti-alcohol. And then you had the Bohemian Catholics going to St. Wentz. In Goosetown, you had the German Catholics going to St. Mary's. You had the Irish Catholics going to St. Pat's. The English hated everybody. The Germans hated the Bohemies. Nobody liked the Irish. But what brought the Irish and the Germans and the Bohemies together was beer.
Yeah.
And the 3 breweries, because, at that time, We had the state hospital, we had the state university, but we didn't have much industry. So these breweries employed a ton of people, about 1/7 of the town's population. And they were the ones that were building the community. They were the ones that were very philanthropic. They gave away a lot of their money because they knew how important it was to be good community members.
Right.
And when Prohibition comes, they're kind of blindsided. You know, the actual truth was in 1882, the state legislature left it up to each county whether they be wet or dry. All the river communities along the Mississippi voted against it. The Englert, Dostal, and Graff, the three brewery owners, thought we have nothing to worry about. Well, there may have been some voter irregularity back then, and it passed somehow.
Right.
And so on July 4th, 1884, Prohibition came to Iowa City. Now, Conrad Graff, who was the brewmaster at the Union Brewing Company in Brewery Square now, he had just put his entire life savings into buying the brewery from his wife's parents' estate. So he married the brewery owner's daughter, Anna Hotz. And he's almost immediately told, you can't sell anymore. And he said, baloney, kept selling out the back door. Englert and Dostal followed suit. Two brothers called the Swafford brothers, who are kind of the villains in our movie, turned state's evidence against the three brewery owners, saying, yeah, we saw you selling after the fact. And a local lawyer appointed himself prosecutor. His last name was Maine. He knew that he couldn't get a conviction downtown in Johnson County District Court because it's a jury of your peers. So he did a change of venue to Scott Township, which is Scott Boulevard on the east side of town, because that's where all the Methodists live. There's a Methodist judge, Judge Shell, over there. So upon learning this, the brewers know they're screwed. Their goose is cooked. There's no way they're going to get out of this. So they decide to have a party downtown at a bar. They give away free beer. The sheriff says can't do that, locks the door. The crowd, when promised free beer, is going to get free beer. You can imagine what would happen if I said free beer in front of John's.
Some things never change.
Yeah. So they break down the doors, drink every drop of beer in the place. The crowd, now a mob, led by Graff, Englert, and Dostal, go out to the judge's house, and they actually tar and feather the lawyer, and they almost hang the two brothers. Now, you might recognize Englert. J.J. Englert was actually the father of the guy that started the Englert Theater downtown. He's on the city council, and he is eventually elected to be sheriff. So in Iowa City in 1884, you can almost kill three guys and still become sheriff. So, you know, social media, it wasn't a big thing back then, I guess. But but yeah, and you know, the fact of the matter is that, you know, it was a very tumultuous time, and both sides thought that they were right. And it makes me happy about, you know, thinking about our story, because we have this idealized view of what used to be, but you know, that melting pot was not melting, and we had a lot of issues, and we somehow got through it. We came together as a country, and that gives me hope that eventually we'll be able to get back to somewhere close to center in our country as well.
No, it's the same story. I mean, it's the temperance movement were Methodists and Quakers, some Lutherans, some established, you know, and the immigrant who was, I'm going to turn $1. I'm ambitious. I came here from a really bad place. You know, and I can do this if you let me work hard. And so.
Yeah, my grandpa said that his grandpa Charles was the first legitimate, you know, Iowa Citian. But you know, for a couple of generations before that, they were poor. You know, one of our ancestors got shot stealing a chicken because his family didn't have anything to eat. And you know, I never knew that, you know, that bohunk term was, you know, very derogatory back in the day. You know, 16 candles, you know, a greasy a bohunk, you know, that's talking about bohemies. You know, thinking back about, you know, like the struggles that all these immigrants had, and you know, why did they come to Iowa? It's because, well, you look at Bohemia, you look at Bavaria, it's pretty much the same latitude, so same weather, same crops,
pretty familiar
hills. It was, you know, like, but they didn't have the Austro-Hungarian Empire drafting them to fight their wars. You know, I asked my grandpa one time, you know, why did they immigrate? He goes, well, because they got tired of being cannon fodder. And and that's really kind of what it was. So, they're coming here searching for a better life. They brought with them a lot of their traditions, but they threw away a lot of their stuff because they wanted to be America. They wanted to be Americans here. They kind of said, we're done with over there. They brought with them the goose, the beer, a lot of things, but it was a lot for people coming over with nothing.
The thread that runs through this, I think, are the churches, and you had the amazing ability to film at a lot of these places that were still there.
Yes.
When in houses and
yes, yeah,
that haven't changed. I mean, the breweries aren't there.
Yeah.
But a lot of the places still are.
Yeah, I know. So we asked Father Andrew if we could film at St. Mary's. Father Witt, when we did our proof of concept, was actually in the proof of concept. He found a priest's robe that basically dated back to the 1880s. I don't know how he found it, but so Father Andrew asked the diocese, and I assured him that they're the good guys. It's all good. So that was amazing because 5 generations of my family have been married at St. Mary's. We went over to St. Paul's Lutheran Chapel, right to the south of us. We didn't go to the Methodist Church just because that church is the 3rd church that's been there on that corner, and it's way too new. And it was really ironic, but I was a scoutmaster at the Methodist Church for the longest time, and I one time I did a charity tour, and it benefited the First United Methodist Men, and everybody on my beer cave tour and the presentation were all from the church. And I got to a certain point, and I just froze, and the only thing I could say was awkward, because you guys are all cool because you're drinking beer, but your ancestors not so much.
Right.
But yeah, so we filmed at St. Paul's because it's a much smaller chapel, and we wanted to show kind of in the beginning of the movie where there wasn't very many people, and as time grew on and as the propaganda grew, so did their numbers. And Reverend Max, I've known, he's a great neighbor, and we've been good friends for a long time. So it was nothing to get places like that. Rod Leonard's and Liz at the Old Capitol were amazing to work with. I know that we kind of took a couple years off of Liz's life by filming in there, but
for those that are listening, the Old Capitol is actually a structure it was the original or second capital for the state of Iowa,
correct,
territory of Iowa, so
Yeah.
it's still standing.
Yep.
Has a lot of the legislative room still built at the Senate and the House.
Yes, yeah. And so we filmed in the House chamber, the Senate chamber, the Supreme Court chambers, the Supreme Court Law Library, and then on probably one of the most amazing, beautifully built staircases in the world. It's a spiral staircase, but it actually goes the opposite way. The fact that we were able to film there for 4 days in such a historic location, I mean, more people are going to see the interior of the Old Capitol by watching Death of Brewer than probably have ever in the totality of the Old Capitol seen the interior of the Old Capitol.
So the story is obviously a great one. It's an unbelievable project. I can only imagine how frequently you find yourself struck that the Hollywood industry and movie making world is such a big part of the world you're currently living in right now. But I am curious all the way back to the very beginning of this. Do you remember that moment where the words were first spoken, like, we should make a movie? And did it just happen from the jump? Was there an incubation period? Was there a flashpoint?
So Steve sent me a copy of the book to kind of help him edit for beer authenticity. And so we were talking back and forth, and I'm not exactly sure how it came about, but when we first met McCutsey, I'd never met him before. Steve, had only seen him on set of East and Middle West, but it was like, here's our brother. And we knew just kind of right at that moment that the three of us have the right tools to be able to get this done. And it was just kind of, snap and let's make a movie. Let's do it. It was at Big Grove when we met, and that was kind of apropos, meeting over a beer and all that. But it just felt right. And
Have you had the chance to watch a movie since you've started this?
You know, I have, and now I cannot watch a movie the same way.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Because I'm looking at all the little things, and you know, like, and while we're on set, somebody said, Doug, and I still have yet to watch it, but there's a behind the scenes making of The Godfather, and that was actually a real horse head.
Yeah. Yeah.
and they actually had real gangsters
Right.
in that movie.
Yeah.
And just like, you know, I think about, you know, the reason why they developed Tums is for movie producers. And I was eating those things like chiclets, I tell you, but it was, yeah. It was a great experience that I never, ever want to do again.
It's awesome you got it done. Thanks for doing it.
Well, thank you. No, it's kind of my love letter to Iowa City. I mean, I want all of Iowa City to look at this movie and go, that's my town.
Yeah.
So you and Crispin Glover agree, no sequel.
No sequel. Unless it has lightsabers. You know, then we'll talk.
I'm going to ask you one last question back to the store and the business.
Yeah.
You sell beers from around the world, famous for all the legendary beers you sell. What is the number one selling beer at John's Grocery?
Ooh, right now, it would. Well, I know our best-selling brewery is Big Grove.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a no doubter. But as far as, I mean, it's so hard because you know, are you talking, you know, individual can, 6-pack, 12-pack? You know.
Just curious if you had, probably most cases out the door. I was assuming it would be something along the lines of Busch Light, but I'm glad you have to think about it.
No,
You have
I mean,
more refined palate coming into the store.
Yeah, we definitely, and it also kind of depends on the time of the year. But I think if there was one, especially when you look at, you know, number of kegs that we sell, it would probably be Easy Eddie.
Okay, yeah, that's great. It's
Yeah.
good to see local business doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool seeing local happen. And there's so many amazing stories, and there's so many amazing people that, you know, never get the chance to kind of, you know, say a little bit about themselves. And it seems like right now it's all about me instead of we. And you know, we got to get back to the we got to get back to the neighborhood, we got to get back to the community.
Agreed. I like it.
Here.
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to have you join us. I think literally the first time we got together and talked about this, your name was maybe the first one that came up, is where can we go? Local businesses, local people. So thanks for taking the time. We know how valuable it is.
Thank you, guys.
Well, Doug, you're welcome to play this. We do something at the end of all of our podcasts. It's a speed round where I come up with a theme, and I will ask you a series of questions. The boys will write down the question, and you're welcome to pick up a pad and paper if you wish. If you don't, that's fine too. You can just sit and listen. So, ironically, I don't think we talked about the name of the movie, which is Death of a Brewer. All right. So this week's topic is, are these famous brewers deceased or are they still alive? So I'm going to give you the name of 5 former brewers, and you will let me know if they're alive
are
or
these
dead.
like Milwaukee Brewers?
That's correct.
Okay.
The first brewer is Robin Yount. Is Robin Yount still alive?
All right.
Or is he deceased? The second brewer, the Cobra, Dave Parker, alive or deceased? The third, Roland Glenn Fingers. Raleigh Fingers. Is he alive?
Best mustache ever.
Agreed. Next, brewer, Marshall Edwards. And last, Paul Molitor. Is Paul Molitor still alive?
Alrighty.
All right, here we go. We will go directly to my left. Bradley, is Robin Yount still alive?
I said he's dead.
I think he's still alive riding his motocross bike in California.
He's alive.
Doug, yeah. Robin Yount, nicknamed the Kid, is a former, he's spent his entire 20 years with the Brewers, and he's still very much alive.
Sorry, Robin.
Dave, the Cobra Parker.
It's a great pull that you called him a brewer. I mean, I think that we are family generation.
Oh, yeah,
is
yeah,
thinking
for sure,
him pirate
for
all the
sure.
way. But sadly, Dave Parker is deceased.
Yep.
Yeah, Dave Parker, 7-time All-Star. He played 1 season with Milwaukee at age 39. He hit .289 with 21 home runs. Pretty impressive. Yeah. And he's a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Roland Glenn Fingers, Raleigh Fingers, a Hall of Famer. Doug?
I think he passed.
I went with dead as well.
I believe he passed away as well.
Raleigh Fingers is still alive.
Right?
How
is he not
The
like on
mustache
TV,
lives
man?
on.
Still, yeah,
Right,
okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
He has got a chicken chain called Smell My Fingers. That's not true. He doesn't.
You never know what's coming out of Ray's mouth.
Marshall Edwards, he made the famous catch in 1982 for the championship series. Is Marshall Edwards, very famous brewer. Doug, we'll start with you.
He's alive.
Same.
I had deceased.
He passed away this year. Yeah, April 15th. It was a pretty sad day in Milwaukee. And last but not least, Brad Paul Molitor.
Alive.
He didn't look like he was taking Game 7 very well a couple of weeks ago, so unless something tragic happened, I'm going to say still alive.
Yeah, he's alive.
Yeah, Paul Molitor's still alive. Old Molly, and he is a Hall of Famer too. So those brewers are deceased and still with us. So, Doug, hey, thanks for having us.
Thank
Actually,
you.
our next show is with you too, or somebody in your shop. We're going to do discussion about holiday beverages, beers,
Yeah.
wines, and spirits, and to kick off your December 3rd event that you host.
Correct. Yeah.
So, but thanks for having us. We really
Really
appreciate
appreciate
it.
it. Thanks, Doug. Always a great time.
All right, fellas, you got all your system?
Got it.
We
Thank
do.
you.
All right, crew, you can get with us on our Facebook group, which is Deep Dive Pod. You can grab all of our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube and communicate with us. Let us know what you want to hear in the Deep Dive Pod area. Generation Next.
Come down to John's and get yourself some Belgian beer, some Czech beer, and maybe some Death of a Brewer swag.
Right.
I'm going to go for one of these cycling jerseys, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, out of here.
Thanks.